The Buddha, the great teacher, he who transformed the historical foundations of human awareness. He didn't create Buddhism. Instead, Buddhism naturally emerged as a result of his teachings. He introduced a completely different type of spirituality to the world. He established a religion that transcends traditional belief systems, sparking not just a faith, but also a profound sense of purpose. This represents one of the most significant transformations in the evolution of human consciousness. Before the arrival of the Buddha, many religions existed, yet they stemmed from more than just spiritual influences. Humanity wasn't ready for true spiritual growth. When the Buddha appeared, it marked a pivotal moment in human maturity. Although not all of humanity embraced this path back then, the Buddha illuminated the way and opened the doors for others to follow. It takes time for individuals to grasp such a deep message. The teachings of the Buddha hold the most profound insights in our world. No one has accomplished what he did, nor has anyone else exuded that pure essence in quite the same way. The founders of other religions often compromise their teachings to satisfy their followers. The Buddha, however, remained steadfast and maintained his purity. He didn't worry whether you understood him or not. His only concern was truth and reality. He spoke freely, without concern for comprehension. This may seem harsh, but in essence, it embodies true compassion. The truth must be conveyed in its most authentic form. The moment you dilute it or adjust it to fit human understanding, it loses its essence and becomes inauthentic, like a lifeless object. You cannot lower truth to fit human perceptions. Instead, humanity must elevate itself to meet the truth. This is the monumental task the Buddha undertook. Chapter 1. Remember this: Buddha is freedom. The Blessed One, Gautama Buddha, commonly known as the Buddha, the Awakened One, or the Enlightened One, began his spiritual journey focused on freedom, independent of any ideology. This is an exceptionally rare phenomenon. Most conventional spiritual paths tend to be restrictive, relying on self-discipline. They do not foster personal transformation. They merely inhibit growth. They neither liberate nor uplift. Rather, they enslave and suffocate. If you see a Buddhist monk who seems repressed, it is clear they lack a true understanding of Buddhism. They have imposed their own struggles onto the teachings of the Blessed One. The Buddha himself did not cling to any ideology. He had no ideology because ideologies are constructs of the mind, and since they are mental constructs, they cannot guide you beyond the confines of the mind. To transcend the mind, all ideologies must be discarded. The Buddha also rejected ideals because they generate tension and inner conflict. Ideals create division and suffering. You are inherently yourself, yet ideals demand that you become someone else, leading to inner turmoil. Ideals can inflict pain and even drive individuals to a state of schizophrenia. Only a consciousness free from ideologies remains undivided. If you are fragmented, how can you experience true happiness? How can you find peace or tranquility? Someone who clings to ideals is in a constant battle with themselves, perpetually caught in confusion and conflict, unsure if they are living up to ideals or embracing reality. They lose faith in themselves, leading to insecurity and a decline in confidence. Once confidence is lost, they become vulnerable to anyone, be it priests, politicians, or others who can provide a sense of identity. They forget their true selves and their essence. The Buddha taught a way of life characterized by freedom and a non-idealistic approach. That's why he didn't speak of a supreme being, nor did he discuss a path to enlightenment or a distant future. He doesn't offer you anything to grasp. Rather, he removes everything from your grasp, even your sense of identity. He continuously strips away layers until he ultimately takes away the notion of I. What remains is pure emptiness. This emptiness can be challenging to confront because we've lost the ability to give. We only know how to take. We often say, I take a partner, treating them as possessions. Yet, a partner is not an object. You can own a house, but how can you claim a partner? Our language reflects our mindset. We struggle to understand how to give, how to let go, and how to allow things to unfold naturally. The Buddha removes all these ideals and even our sense of self, leaving behind an untainted emptiness. He refers to this emptiness as nirvana. Nirvana is not a destination. It's the emptiness that resides within you. When you release everything you've accumulated, when you stop clinging and hoarding, that emptiness will emerge. It's always there, hidden beneath the layers of clutter we've built up in our lives. Think of a house overflowing with belongings. You keep adding more furniture until there's no room for empty space. Eventually, navigating through that clutter becomes a challenge, and living in that space feels constricting because you can no longer see any emptiness. But the emptiness hasn't disappeared. It remains, merely obscured by all the excess. Remove the clutter, and the emptiness will reveal itself. It's always present, just waiting to be uncovered. Nirvana is always there. The Buddha doesn't grant you nirvana as a lofty ideal. Instead, he offers you freedom without any restrictions. He teaches you how to live, not for any specific goal, but to enjoy the blessings of the present moment. He shows you how to live in awareness, not as a means to achieve something, but as the ultimate destination. Awareness possesses intrinsic value. It's your inner compass. The Buddha does not speak of another mysterious realm. He simply instructs you on how to be fully present in this world. He guides you to remain mindful and aware, ensuring that nothing can taint your inner emptiness. He encourages you to stay untouched by the external world, maintaining a sense of purity within. Mystical spirituality can often be constraining and damaging, filled with suffering. In contrast, the spirituality offered by the Buddha introduces a new flavor, one of non-idealism, living in the present without the burdens of a future or another realm. It's akin to a flower blooming right here and now, demanding nothing because it already encompasses everything. It simply invites you to awaken more fully, enabling you to see, hear, and exist more profoundly. Remember, your existence correlates directly with your awareness. The more aware you are, the more fully you exist. Consciousness generates existence. Without awareness, you don't truly exist. When you're intoxicated or asleep, you lose your sense of presence. But when you're awake, you experience a grounded sense of reality. In moments of awareness, your existence feels solid and tangible. Conversely, when you lack awareness, your sense of existence slowly diminishes, fading away in states of intoxication or slumber. Therefore, the Buddha's core message centers around awareness, not for any specific reason, but simply to be aware. Consciousness shapes your reality and transforms you into a version of yourself that transcends your current identity, where the notion of I ceases to exist. The difference between Buddhism and traditional religions. Nirvana is a unique concept in the teachings of the Buddha, symbolizing the highest state of consciousness and liberation from all desires. Although the Buddha adopted the term nirvana, it wasn't previously associated with any spiritual significance. He explained that our sense of self resembles a flame, constantly fueled by endless desires. As these desires fade, our sense of self diminishes and merges back into the universe, leaving no trace of separate existence. In nirvana, all notions of individual identity dissolve, and we become indistinguishable from the vast cosmos. The Buddha deliberately chose the term nirvana, rather than more affirming words, because he recognized that positive words can evoke a sense of self-importance, highlighting the ego that must ultimately be liberated. Nirvana does not lead to spiritual corruption. It represents the absence of all desires. While the word nirvana might not initially evoke excitement or longing, that's part of its beauty. Words that ignite desire often lead to suffering and tension, whereas nirvana offers absolute freedom, devoid of longing or tension. The Buddha emphasized our readiness to embrace this dissolution. Even in the absence of the self, nirvana retains its purity. Even after centuries, nirvana remains the purest concept. Its sound, regardless of whether we fully grasp its meaning, still brings an unparalleled sense of peace and tranquility. When we hear the word nirvana, time seems to stand still, allowing us to dissolve into the infinite, leaving no trace of individual existence behind. Chapter 2. The Buddha's Quest for Truth. When the Buddha was born, astrologers warned the king, "The gods are anxious that Your Majesty should know this. The prince who has just been born will either become a Chakravartin, a universal ruler, or he will become an ascetic monk. These are the two extremes." The king was aging when the prince was born, and this was his only heir. He requested the astrologers to find a way to prevent the child from becoming an ascetic and renouncing the world. These astrologers knew nothing about the mind and psychology. Perhaps they only knew about the stars far away, millions of light years from Earth. And how foolish humans are to believe that their fate, their destiny, is determined by the millions of stars far away. There is a reason for the meaningful existence of astrology. It gives you satisfaction to think that the entire universe cares about you. Even the stars far away are striving to do something for you. You are not ordinary, you are not nothing. The stars far away don't even know about you. They couldn't possibly. But your ego feels stroked. Astrologers have exploited this since the early days of humanity. Of course they exploit you. You have to pay them. But somehow you feel deserving. They give you a big ego. You become grand, more important than the biggest star in the sky. They all revolve around you. But these poor astrologers are not even as clever as Sigmund Freud. They told the king, "If Your Majesty wants the prince not to renounce the world, the gods need to perform some rituals." In India, there are 3 distinct seasons in a year. Nowadays, this has changed. But before, every year on the same day, the rain would start, and also on a similar day, the rain would stop. In the winter, it arrives on the same day and ends 4 months later on a similar day. Throughout the centuries, the seasons unfolded this way. Nowadays, it has changed. But in the time of the Buddha, it was like this. The king ordered 3 palaces built, each for a season. In the summer, the palace on the hilltop was always lush and beautiful. Every detail was meticulously arranged so that Prince Siddhartha never felt disappointed with this world. In the winter, a warm atmosphere enveloped the palace. The astrologers told the king, "From the outset, let the prince live among beautiful maidens, so that by the time he becomes a young man, the prince will have all the beautiful maidens of the country." They went even further into detail, saying that the prince should not see the elderly, for seeing the elderly would make the prince question, "Is this the fate of everyone?" Never let the prince see the dead. Absolutely do not let the prince know about the reality of life. Keep the prince in the idyllic fairyland. Their argument was that when one has everything, why would one want to renounce it, to resist it? The prince was cared for by the country's wise men. Even the gardeners in the palace were ordered that the prince should not see a flower about to wilt or a leaf about to change color. When night fell, anything signaling death had to be removed. The prince only saw beautiful, vibrant flowers. He only saw evergreen leaves. And the king could do this. The king ordered it to be done, and this method backfired. Those foolish astrologers did not realize a simple truth. If one has everything and does not recognize the ugliness around, sooner or later he will feel bored. Sooner or later he will start to think, "Is this all there is?" Then tomorrow will be the same. The day after will not change. What's the point? He will become bored. And that's what happened. The prince became bored with the ever-beautiful maidens, with the ever-vibrant flowers. How long can your mind stay silent? It was the astrologers who caused the prince to renounce the palace. If he had been allowed to live a normal life like everyone else, perhaps there would have been no Buddha. To some extent, the astrologers unintentionally contributed greatly to humanity. Unable to conceal the truth. Every year, the palace holds a festival, and Crown Prince Siddhartha, the heir to the throne, presides over and declares the opening of the festival. The festival lasts for several weeks with all sorts of sporting events and artistic performances. At the age of 29, Crown Prince Siddhartha stood up to declare the opening of this festival. On the way to the festival, every detail was meticulously arranged, yet existence always finds its way to reach you. You cannot remain completely closed like a tomb unless you are dead. If you are alive, there will surely be air vents for existence to seep in and make you aware of reality. Astrologers and kings cannot be smarter than existence. Every detail was meticulously arranged along the route from the palace to the festival venue. No elderly, no dead bodies, no funeral processions, anything that could make the prince suspicious. But you cannot avoid reality for long. As the carriage was heading towards the festival, the prince saw an old man. He was deaf and did not hear the prohibition order for that day, that he must stay indoors and not go out. The old man was deaf, unable to hear, so out of his daily habit, he left the house to go to the market to buy food. For the first time in 29 years, the prince saw an old, decrepit man, someone on the threshold of death. The prince asked the coachman, "What is happening? What has happened to that man? I have never seen anything like this." The coachman loved the prince like his own son. He couldn't lie. Although this will go against the king's order, the deity cannot lie to the prince. Everyone tried everything so that the prince wouldn't see the old man. Everyone has to grow old. The deity will also grow old. This is the law of life. The prince then asked, "Does that mean one day I will also grow old like that man?" The coachman replied, "I beg the deity to be truthful. I hope this will not happen to the prince, but it is the law of life, and nothing can change it." Just as the prince grew from a child to a young man, then from a young man to an old man, and then someone died right there. Now you cannot prevent death. You cannot command death in a way like, "You are not allowed to happen on this road. You may happen elsewhere." Death is not within your control. Someone dies, people cry, and the dead body lies there. The prince asked, "What happened? Why is everyone crying?" Crown Prince Siddhartha had never seen anyone cry, never seen tears shed by anyone, never seen a dead body. He asked, "What happened to this person? He isn't even breathing anymore." The coachman said, "This is the next stage. First, the prince sees the old man. Before long, death will come, and it has come for him." The prince asked, "So will I also die someday?" The coachman, though fearful of the king, because he was an upright man, answered that, "The truth is the truth, and no one can deny it. Your Majesty will die, I will die, the prince will also die. Death begins on the day people are born. After being born, there is no escape from death." And at that moment they passed by a wanderer, a sannyasin. The astrologers had warned the king. The prince must not associate with wanderers, for they are against everything. They teach that this world is an illusion, that all desires lead nowhere, that humans are only wasting their lives, and every passing moment brings death closer. We must avoid the wanderers. And for 29 years, Crown Prince Siddhartha had no idea that someone was striving to seek beyond life and death. The wanderer in the red-orange robe looked strange to the prince, who had never seen a wanderer in 29 years, must have been curious. He asked, "And what about this man? I have seen many people, but never anyone dressed like this, holding a bowl. Who is he?" The coachman replied, "This is someone who understands that beauty turns into ugliness, that youth turns into old age, that life turns into death, and he is trying to find out if there is anything eternal. Is there anything untouched by youth, old age, death, or disease? He is a wanderer. He has renounced the mundane world. He is seeking the truth." As they approached the festival venue, the prince ordered the coachman, "Turn back. I will not attend the festival of youth anymore. If youth ultimately turns into old age, sickness, death, and if this will happen to me, then I have wasted 29 years in vain. I have lived in dreams. I am no longer young, and I no longer want to be a prince. Tonight I will renounce this world and seek the truth." What the astrologers told the king seemed like basic knowledge, but basic knowledge is shallow. They could not imagine one simple thing. No one can keep a person unaware of reality for a lifetime. It's best to let them know from the beginning, or it will be a great shock in their life. And it happened. That very night, Crown Prince Siddhartha left the palace, renouncing everything. Chapter 3. The Journey Towards Enlightenment. The prince diligently sought truth for 6 long years, and no one accomplished it as fully as he did. He sought out every master to learn from. There was not a single teacher that the prince did not seek out. He devoted himself completely, committed himself entirely, seeking in the realm of spirituality what others could not find. He learned all that they could teach him, all the powers they possessed, all the deep secrets they knew. But he found nothing. After 6 years, it was as if he had learned all the possible secrets of the universe. He had not found the truth, nor was there any mention of the truth. But they told him he was near, very near. He was only an inch away. After 6 years, Siddhartha sat under the Bodhi tree, declaring, "Tonight, I will sit here until I find the truth." As the sun began to set, a sense of serenity enveloped him. He felt liberated, as though he had finally come home. He realized he had had enough of the unnecessary, learned how to use it only when it was essential, and be free of it. One can say that enlightenment is not a process. It is the recognition of what already exists. Nothing needs to be added, nothing needs to be removed. All one needs to do is stop going after knowledge. It is as if one was carrying a sack of burdens on one's back for all those years, convinced it was the only way. So when he stopped going after it, it became clear. All this time, I had the burden, and that was the true burden. Siddhartha's realization was one that would transform the world. Life is suffering. This was not a pessimistic statement. This was not an objection. It was a fact. It was the truth he had found. He began to see everything differently, the whole of humanity, suffering, pain, life, and death. He had found the essence of existence. But the discovery was not enough, for he knew that he could not bear this realization alone. He must share it. When the sun rose the next day, Siddhartha became the Buddha, the enlightened one. He was now fully aware of the truth of existence, the realities that many never see. He realized he had uncovered what others had sought for centuries and struggled to find. His quest was over, but now began the journey of sharing his wisdom with the world. The first step was to return to the 5 companions, the ones who had first accompanied him in his quest for truth, but had abandoned him when he decided to live a life of pleasure. As he began to share his experience, they were skeptical, wondering what could have changed in Siddhartha in such a short time. But as he continued to speak, his words flowed like a river, pure, enlightening, and insightful. The truth he shared struck them deeply, awakening their own struggles and doubts. A new path to liberation. Buddha shared the 4 noble truths with them. The truth of suffering. Life inherently includes suffering, and it's an unavoidable part of human existence. The truth of the cause of suffering. Suffering stems from attachment, desire, and craving. The more we cling to desires, the more we suffer. The truth of the end of suffering. It is possible to end suffering by letting go of attachment and desires. The truth of the path to the end of suffering. The Noble Eightfold Path serves as a guide to living a life of moderation and wisdom, leading one toward enlightenment. These truths resonated deeply with the 5 companions, illuminating their own struggles and confusion. They began to see the profound depth of his message and how it applied to their own lives. They understood that their previous pursuits had not led them to liberation, nor had the extreme practices of asceticism. Instead, they embraced the middle way that the Buddha advocated, one of balance, neither indulging in pleasure nor denying oneself of life's experiences. The 5 companions, now rejoined with the Buddha, became the first disciples of Buddhism, embarking on a shared journey toward enlightenment and liberation from suffering. This marked the beginning of a new spiritual path that would eventually reach millions. Chapter 4. The Greatest Offering. Vipassana Meditation. The Buddha introduced a completely new concept of meditation to the world. Before him, meditation was a structured practice. done once or twice a day for a set period, an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, and perhaps a few times throughout the day. But the Buddha brought a profound shift in understanding the meditation process. He proclaimed that meditation could not be separated from life, nor could it be confined to designated times. It must flow seamlessly with our everyday existence, just as natural as breathing itself. Imagine trying to breathe only for an hour in the morning and again in the evening. You would not survive. Meditation should be as continuous as breath, integrated into every moment of life. The Buddha explained that this kind of meditation must become a natural phenomenon. Only then can it lead to true transformation. In this new vision, the Buddha gifted the world with vipassana, a Pali term meaning to see. He chose to speak in Pali rather than Sanskrit, the language of intellectuals and the elite. Pali was accessible, the language of the common people, allowing him to convey deep truths without the barriers of complex grammar. This decision marked a revolutionary shift. He aimed to connect with everyone, not just the scholarly few. The essence of vipassana, or insight meditation, focuses on the essential act of witnessing. While other forms of meditation may involve various techniques, the core principle remains unchanged: to observe without judgment. The Buddha introduced 3 steps of witnessing, beginning with the body. This is the simplest entry point. By observing the movements of your hands, your steps, and your actions, you cultivate awareness. Witnessing your body's actions allows you to experience grace and tranquility. Without awareness, actions are rushed and devoid of beauty. The Buddha himself moved slowly, teaching that walking should be done with intention and mindfulness, as if navigating a cold stream, each step taken with care and observation. Observing the mind. The second step transitions to witnessing the mind. This involves observing thoughts, which, although subtler than physical movements, exist just like the body. Thoughts are like the air, present but often overlooked. The key to this step is to refrain from judgment. The moment you start labeling thoughts as good or bad, you lose the ability to witness. Instead, perceive your thoughts as clouds drifting in the sky, neither negative nor positive. As your capacity for stable witnessing increases, you'll notice a reduction in the tumult of thoughts. If your witnessing is steady at 50%, then half of your thoughts will diminish. Reach 100% stable witnessing, and thoughts will appear momentarily before fading away, just like fleeting clouds. Achieving this non-judgmental observation turns you into a mirror, reflective, but never critical. A mirror remains unchanged regardless of what it reflects. This state of witnessing is the pinnacle of meditation. Observing emotions and moods. The final step involves witnessing deeper experiences, your emotions and moods. As you shift from thoughts to feelings, maintain the same principle. Observe without judgment. Most emotions tend to consume us. Sadness feels like we become sadness itself, and anger engulfs us completely. Vipassana teaches that when you witness these feelings without becoming them, you regain control. Sadness will come and go, joy will rise and fall, but you remain unshaken. Through this witnessing, you discover a taste of enlightenment, a state of mastery over your emotional landscape. When you fully witness your body, mind, and heart, the next step arises naturally. It's not something you force. It's a reward for your dedication. This is a leap into the essence of existence, a return home to self-realization and ultimate freedom. Chapter 5. The Middle Way, Majjhima Nikaya. One hot summer day as the Buddha traveled, he felt the pangs of thirst. He instructed his devoted disciple, Ananda, "I apologize, Ananda, but I must return to the stream we passed 2 or 3 miles back. Please go and fetch me some water." Ananda, eager to serve, replied, "There's no need for apologies, Master. My joy lies in your service. I will return with the water." Ananda retraced their steps, recalling the clear stream they had just crossed. But upon his return, he found the water muddied by passing carts. The once pristine stream was now clouded with dirt and debris, making it unsuitable for the Buddha to drink. Ananda thought it wise to find a larger river further ahead. "Master, the water is dirty. I will fetch you some from the river 4 miles ahead." But the Buddha insisted, "No, I want to drink from that stream. You must return and fetch it for me." Confused, Ananda returned to the stream. By the time he got there, he noticed the leaves had settled, but the water remained slightly murky. It was then that Ananda realized the deeper message the Buddha was conveying. Sitting beside the stream, he understood. Just as I needed to allow the water to clear naturally, so too must I allow my mind to settle. The Buddha, aware of the deeper wisdom unfolding, asked, "Ananda, do you now understand?" Tears filled Ananda's eyes. "Yes, Master. I realize now that my attempts to jump in and clean the stream only stirred up more mud. All I needed to do was sit and wait. Everything has its own natural process." The Buddha replied, "You are not thirsty. It is your mind that is parched. I did not ask you to fetch water for me, but rather to comprehend a profound lesson. Simply sit beside the stream of your mind. Do nothing. Allow yourself to observe without attachment. What's happening in your mind is akin to the stream, ever-changing yet always flowing. You are not your thoughts. You are merely the observer." The Buddha's philosophy, encapsulated in the Majjhima Nikaya, revolves around the principle of balance, the middle way. He taught that one must remain centered, neither clinging to extremes nor being pushed away by them. Pain and pleasure will arise. Accept both as truth. Witness them without striving to escape or cling. Whether happiness or sorrow visits, observe it all. Stand as a watcher on the hill, where the sun rises and sets, recognizing the cyclical nature of existence. In this stillness, amidst the movement of the world, clarity emerges. You cannot grasp reality while in motion. Only a calm, unmoving mind can perceive the truth. Just like a camera needs to be still to capture clear images, so too must your mind settle to discern reality. Only then will you uncover what is true, recognizing that the essence of existence lies in the stillness of the observer. Chapter 6. Emptiness, Sunyata, in Buddhist philosophy. The entire religion of the Buddha can be described by a single word: freedom. That's the core message of the Buddha, the essence of his fragrance. No one else raises freedom to such heights. It's the supreme value in the Buddha's vision, nothing higher than that. Perhaps it's necessary to understand why the Buddha emphasizes freedom so much. It's not God, it's not the path of meditation, it's not even love, it's only freedom. All things of value can only happen in an environment of freedom. Love flourishes on the soil of freedom. Without it, love cannot thrive. Without freedom, what you call love is nothing but physical desire. Without freedom, there's no God. The God you think of is merely a product of your imagination, fears, and greed. Without freedom, there's no meditation. Freedom is meditation itself. If you think there's meditation without freedom, then that meditation is worthless. It's not real. It's just your illusion, your dream. All the great values in life develop in an environment of freedom, making it the most fundamental and highest value. To understand the Buddha, you must experience a little of the freedom he's talking about. Freedom doesn't come from the outside. It's not social, political, or economic. It's spiritual freedom. When the Buddha speaks of freedom, he refers to a state of consciousness unimpeded by cravings, unrestrained by greed or wanting more. It means a consciousness without mind, a state of no mind. It's completely empty because anything contained within would hinder freedom. Hence, it must be absolutely empty. The term emptiness, or sunyata, has been widely misunderstood. Whenever we hear emptiness, we often think of something negative. In the language of the Buddha, emptiness is not negative. On the contrary, it's very positive. More positive than what is called fulfillment. Emptiness is filled with freedom, while other things have been removed. It's vast and expansive. All boundaries have been removed. It's unlimited, and only in the unlimited can freedom appear. The emptiness of the Buddha is not ordinary emptiness. It's not absence, but the presence of the invisible. For example, when you clean your room, removing clutter, pictures, and other objects, it becomes empty because there's no more clutter. On the other hand, the invisible begins to appear. That invisibility represents vastness. The room becomes larger as you remove clutter. When everything has been removed, even the walls, the room becomes as vast as the sky. This whole process of meditation is about removing everything, including yourself, to the point of nothingness, where not even you remain. Within that absolute stillness lies freedom. In that stillness appears the 1,000-petaled lotus of freedom, bringing with it the fragrance of peace, hidden love, and blessings. Chapter 7. The Greatness of the Buddha, Compassionate Consciousness. The emphasis on compassionate consciousness by the Buddha Shakyamuni, alongside meditation, is a profoundly new phenomenon for previous mystics. The Buddha created a historical milestone. Before him, meditation alone was enough. No one emphasized compassionate consciousness alongside it. Meditation brings enlightenment, blossoming, and absolute existence. So, what more do you need? Considering every human heart, meditation is sufficient. The greatness of the Buddha Shakyamuni includes speaking of compassionate consciousness even before you begin meditation. You should love more, be more compassionate, and empathize more. There is a scientific explanation for this. Before a person attains enlightenment, if they have a rich, compassionate consciousness, they are likely to help others attain blessings, stature, and praise, similar to what they have achieved. The Buddha Shakyamuni made enlightenment a transformative process. But if one feels they have returned home, why bother others? For the first time, enlightenment became a non-selfish process. The Buddha turned it into a social responsibility. This represents a significant change. However, humans must learn compassionate consciousness before enlightenment. Without this learning, they won't learn anything afterward. When humans are too absorbed in themselves, even compassionate consciousness can hinder their own joy, causing disruptions that affect their ecstatic state. That's why there are hundreds of people who attain enlightenment, but only a few become masters. You don't have to become a master when you attain enlightenment. Becoming a master means having a rich, compassionate consciousness and feeling ashamed to enjoy the full beauty of enlightenment alone. You want to help others find their way in the dark. Helping them becomes your joy, not a burden. In fact, you become even more excited when you see many others around you emanating fragrance. You are no longer the only blooming tree in the forest. When the entire forest blooms with you, the joy multiplies 1,000-fold. Through your enlightenment, you create a revolution for this world. The Buddha Shakyamuni not only attained enlightenment, but also initiated a revolution. His concern for the world and humanity was as vast as the sky and sea. He taught his disciples that when meditating and feeling stillness, profound joy would begin to spread within you. Don't hold on to it for yourself. Give it to the whole world. Don't worry. The more you give, the more you are likely to receive. Giving will have tremendous significance when you know that it does not take anything away from you. On the contrary, it will multiply your experience. Those who have never known compassionate consciousness will not understand the secret of giving or sharing. Once, one of the disciples of Buddha Shakyamuni, who was not a monk but devoted himself to the Buddha, said, "I will do that, but I want an exception. I will give all my joy, all my meditation, and all my precious possessions to this world, except for my neighbor because he is truly despicable. Neighbors are always enemies." Buddha Shakyamuni replied, "Forget about the whole world, just give it to your neighbor." The disciple asked, "What are you talking about, Master?" The Buddha replied, "Only when you can give it to your neighbor can you escape the attitude of hostility toward a fellow human being. The basic meaning of compassion is to accept the weaknesses of others, not to expect them to behave like saints. That expectation is cruel. Others won't meet your standards, leading them to lose their self-respect. You make them numb. You destroy their dignity. One of the most basic aspects of compassion is making people feel valuable. Enlightenment is not just for the deserving, but is the inherent nature and identity of everyone. However, these words need to come from someone who has attained enlightenment. Only then will they inspire belief. If spoken by scholars who have not attained enlightenment, they will not instill trust. Words spoken by an enlightened person resonate with their own rhythm. They become alive and go straight to your heart, transcending mere intellectual discipline. For scholars, it's different. They are uncertain about what they are saying and writing. Buddha Shakyamuni is a turning point in the revolution of consciousness. His contribution is immense and infinite. Within this contribution, the idea of compassion plays a crucial role. But remember that having compassion does not mean you stand above others. Otherwise, you will miss its entire meaning, transforming it into a journey of the ego. Remember not to embarrass someone by pitying them. Otherwise, behind every word of pity lies the humiliation of others. Compassion must be understood because it is mature love. Anyone can express compassion. It's not a relationship. It's simply your essence. You express love for trees, birds, and humans unconditionally, without expecting anything in return. Let me tell you an interesting story. Paddy came home earlier than usual and found his wife lying naked on the bed. When asked why, she replied, "I'm protesting because I don't have nice clothes to wear." Paddy opened the wardrobe, looked inside, and said, "That's absurd. There are yellow dresses, red dresses, floral dresses, and suits. Hello, Bill. There's a green dress." This is compassion. Compassion towards the wife and Bill. No jealousy, no argument, just a simple, "Hello, Bill, how are you?" and continue counting. The husband didn't even ask, "What are you doing in my wardrobe?" Compassion is the expression of someone who truly understands. At an intersection, a man's car veered off and bumped into the back of a car with a "Just Married" sign. It was a minor collision, but the man sincerely apologized to the newlyweds. "Oh, it's okay, just bad luck," the groom replied. Compassion is understanding that anything can happen. Once married, he can accept all kinds of accidents. The biggest accident has already happened, so there's nothing else to fear. Those with compassion will not be affected by life's trivialities or unexpected events. Indirectly, your compassionate energy will crystallize, becoming stronger and flourishing with meditation. Thus, when blessings arrive and you blend with the light, compassion will be your companion, allowing you to experience a new way of living as you now have enough to wish well for the world. Conclusion: be the light that illuminates yourself. The final words of Buddha. Thik kamau ni are. Be the light that illuminates yourself. Don't follow others or imitate them, as doing so only creates foolishness. You are born with boundless understanding and light within. Listen to the small voice, the silence inside, and it will guide you. No one can lead you. No one can be a model for your life because you are unique. Before you, no one was exactly like you, and the same will hold true in the future. This uniqueness is your brilliance and greatness. You are irreplaceable, just as you are, not anyone else. Those who imitate others become imposters and insincere. They become machines. They may appear as saints to others, but they lose their own light. The greatness of Buddha is in being oneself and shining brightly. Your compassion will blossom with a full understanding of your being. Without understanding, your life can easily become a burden for yourself and others. You must explore your essence and find the uniqueness within you. Then compassion will become your birthright, effortlessly shining through your heart and actions. This is what the Buddha taught. Be yourself, allow yourself to bloom, and when you shine, the world will naturally benefit from your brilliance.